Pho3nix Foundation presents the Pho3nix Rising podcast, brought to you by Zwift, the ultimate indoor training app. Fun is fast. Head to Zwift.com. Welcome back once again to Pho3nix Rising. Thank you to all of you who listen, watch and learn along with me as we hear from some of the world's most elite sports people, what motivates them, what makes them who they are, and how they continually rise. This episode, I'm so lucky to be joined by a brand new, freshly minted member of the Pho3nix team, which places her amongst a group of elite athletes that, to be fair, spend a significant chunk of their time in focusing on inspiring kids to participate, to play sport, and to learn all the life skills that sports brings. Many sports, I guess, could be considered a lifestyle, but none represent a lifestyle more than surfing. Its fans and I guess the kids that grow around surfing identify themselves as surfers, not just in the sport they play, but in how they dress, how they speak, how they behave, who they associate with. And that identity can be a crucial part of how a child sees themselves and their place in the world. Idols of the surfing world then have a responsibility. And Sage Erickson, two-time winner of the US Open and a mainstay on the World Tour since she was 21, certainly lives up to that. Sage, welcome to Pho3nix Rising. Welcome to the Pho3nix team. First up, how are you rising today? What's one good thing? This is what I start every podcast with. What's one good thing that's happened to you today?
Dang. Well, thank you. Hi. Well, today, gosh, I try and treat every day as a good day. Even waking up and just having coffee and being able to make that in my own house is amazing. As far as like a specific one great thing, I checked off my checklist of must-dos for a Monday. So then it frees up the rest of my week and I can get out surfing and get moving. And I'm not the best at the administrative side. So if I check that list off, that is a good thing for me.
Yeah, it's always good in the week to do the first thing. The thing you don't want to do the most is do that first, right? And then you're grateful for the rest of the day and the space that it gives you. And I guess that leads me into two questions. The first one is, what's your morning routine look like? I guess, like for me, for anyone, right? It doesn't matter whether you're a professional surfer or you host a podcast or you're an accountant or you're a lawyer or whatever you are or you're a kid. Like I think that everyone should have something that ties down their day, like routine stuff that you go. Because I like to journal. I know you do as well. I do some meditation. I do some. I think about things that I'm grateful for every day, and that ties me down, helps me move forward, even if the day goes haywire after that. What does yours look like?
Yeah, for sure. I think even the things that you do are all amazing things. And for me, most people would think because I'm a surfer and the conditions are best in the morning, it's like I am going to be the daybreaker that is out there at sunrise and up and moving. For me, I love to start the day in a more peaceful way, I guess, or not even peaceful, I guess just slower. I like to make my own coffee. I have two dogs, so I like to take time to like give them attention. And let's be real, the attention's about me. So they are very excited to see me, even though it's only been like 8 hours since I last saw them. But I like to drink my coffee. I do put the news on still. I know some people are like, it's very toxic and there's so much out there that is who knows what. But it's a routine of mine that I've just done since I was so young. So in any country, like if I'm in Australia for events and things, I have that on. And I'm a sucker for surf line. I check the cams from the cozy place on my couch with my dogs. And I just think about the day, check the surf. And then I just feel like once I get to the water, I'm like really ready to get in. Instead of just getting out there right away as the first thing that I do.
Yeah, because sometimes whenever I decide to get up for an early surf, because I live quite close to the water here in Sydney, it sounds like a good idea the night before, and then when I wake up at like 5 o'clock, I'm like, this is terrible.
When
this is a horrible idea.
When your alarm clock's going off, you're like, wait a second.
Whoa.
Why? The idea sometimes is so much easier than the actual action, right?
But then you're in, and it's the sun's coming up, and you're like, oh, now I remember why I did this.
It's the best feeling in the world. I've never regretted an early morning surf. So like even with my slow mornings, like you said, the sunrise, that whole visual, the feeling, committed to the day, right? It's like if you win the morning, you'll win the day. And it's so true. Like it totally is true. And I think for me, that's why I have like different seasons. If I'm really working towards competing or an event specifically, I feel like I have that motivation that I'm like, okay, the time put in, will equal up to a result at some point, and that urgency is important to fulfill. And then other seasons, I also value relaxing in the sense of, walking my dogs or going for a run or doing a group gym class, something kind of more communal feeling. And so I just try and be like honest with how I feel how I feel kind of in that week or those months or when I'm doing and check in. So that's why journaling, like your morning routine with meditation or journaling, like you mentioned, is huge to kind of organize what that day looks like.
Right, yeah, just feel like you've got a progression moving forward. But one thing that I want to touch on there, and you did, is kind of like adaptability, because
Yeah.
sometimes people go, okay, like if you get on YouTube and there'll be like some guy who's an influencer and he'll be like, this is my morning routine, right? And I get up at 5:15 and I have 12 protein shakes, and then I go for a 2,000-kilometer run, and then I go to my job as a CEO. Yeah, I just watched one and I was like, man, I have kids. Sometimes I get up at 4 a.m. I get no sleep. Like being like you can have a morning routine or you can have a daily routine, but if it all goes out the window, or like you don't honor the fact that one day you feel different to another day,
Right.
it can be like a trap for you. It can be like a prison for you, where you end up going, well, this is what I have to do to feel a certain way. So being adaptable, and I guess in the same way, surfing is a little bit like that, and it probably helps exercise that muscle for you, because unlike every other, like it's a dynamic canvas you're competing upon, where you don't have complete control over what's going on, which is not like any other sport. So I suppose that exercises that muscle for you.
Definitely. There's so much truth to there's literally zero of my control that is going on in the ocean. Regardless of maybe what I've tried to manipulate, like the way my board moves, or maybe understanding the dimensions of my surfboard and what it's suited for, I feel like I have more control over my environment or the conditions specifically. But it just is it's either made me extremely nuts and crazy because I'm never mad at someone if they're late. I always feel like, um, if plans change, I'm totally cool with it. I like when change plans. It's also given me total commitment issues because I think deep down it's like I've always had to adapt to if there's surf. Like every holiday, like I can guarantee this Christmas, um, a birthday, anything important, the surf is always good. And so for some reason, it's just like you have that FOMO, that fear of missing out. And with that, I feel like it's helped my life so that I don't, I really don't have so much control over it. And if expectations aren't met, if calendars aren't this or that, like it really doesn't change my happiness. And I think a big goal of mine is to have that continual joy and the continual happiness for myself and for other people. And yeah, it's like I said, I was gonna say batshit crazy, or I feel like I'm a little bit moving in the right direction of being consistent and happy.
Yeah, well, it's freeing, isn't it? Like, I guess there's only so many times you can sit out there needing a 7.8 in a heat or whatever, and not a single wave rolls through for 8 minutes, when you're like, oh, well, this is what happens. I have no control.
Absolutely, and it's happened so many times, and I think um, what I've observed in so many other sports, and sometimes like I guess the word envious maybe isn't the right word, but that there's a consistent playing field. It's literally all about you. Like if you make the mistake, it's your fault. And so I think that's why surfing and as a lifestyle, like it digs so much into identity and you as a person, because you have to question a lot of things because you're like, oh, why wasn't I in the right position? Why didn't the wave come to me in this heat? Why did it come to that girl? How could I better suit this type of condition or this wave? So with that, it's so complex, and I think that's really kind of stemmed my desire for always adapting and always pursuing knowledge and just in different areas because collectively it could all come back to maybe have that wave come to me or know a better position or um, place or time. So I think they're really interesting things, and I think that's so unique to surfing.
Yeah, I feel like you're touching on some philosophically deep thoughts there, right?
Yeah.
So it's because everything's changing, and you're like in the ocean and at the mercy of everything, and you're like, I'm at the mercy of everything. I must
It's so
adapt, and
true.
I feel like
Every
a
day
wave would come, and
surrender.
it's
Every day surrender.
yeah, exactly. I don't know. That's some deep stuff, right? That's probably what you're thinking about out there. You're like zenning out there, missing waves.
Yeah.
Like, what's Sage doing? And you're just out there like, oh,
Just
good to
out.
be at one.
Happy place. Happy
Happy
place.
place. So, I mean, okay, look, thinking back to you, like if you could go back and put yourself in your own shoes when you were 10 or 8, or I mean, what was Sage Erickson like early doors? I know you moved to Hawaii. It sounds awesome because you're like, oh, I'll move to Hawaii when I'm 9. That sounds amazing. And then I'll move to California when I'm 14. That'll be amazing. But it obviously, no one's life is as amazing as it sounds. Pro surfer in Hawaii and California sounds like something I would choose. However, what were you like as a kid? I mean, I've always been really surprised by doing these interviews and people who are so incredible in their jobs and they're like, oh, I was super socially awkward, or I had all these issues, or this or that happened. I mean, what was young Sage like?
Yeah. Dang, loaded question. I mean, there's so many parts. I obviously am born and raised in a small town, Ojai, California. It's about 30 minutes from the ocean. So, my parents were separated from a very young age. My dad, we would go to my dad's on the weekends. He had an old VW van. He was the surf guy. He's got two other brothers. He owned a surf shop when he was younger. So there was that surf culture that was just in him and the camping lifestyle. Like I literally rarely remember not being in the campground when I was with my dad and my brother. And my brother was actually like the real diehard surfer. It's like he had the sponsors and he was dedicated. And it was kind of more or less that time was about him when it came to surfing. And I didn't care either. Like I kept myself entertained, like riding bikes around the campgrounds, um, boogie boarding on occasion, but I just didn't have this big drive yet for the ocean. I loved horses, and the majority of my time spent with my mom and my grandma. Growing up in a coffee shop called Java Heaven, which they had for 10 years. And so, I mean, we would be there from 4:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, um, 6, 7 days a
Wow.
week for 10 years. The coffee shop was about a mile from my school. So once I was in elementary school, I actually would walk all the way home. It was like back in the day where you could still do that. Like, I think I'm like, if I saw like a first or second or third grader like walking that far, I'd probably be a little bit worried. But now thinking it was like the coolest thing. Um, I I was naturally like way more introverted. I think I've taught myself how to be extroverted, and I think some of that natural experience maybe came from being in the coffee shop. So like, I knew I always loved being around people, but I necessarily didn't have like super good social skills as far as like I just love to observe and listen. Um, Grew up there. And then my mom says that this wasn't really the story of why we moved to Hawaii, but I thought at the time that my parents tried to reconcile, which I'm like, was maybe that the real reason, but then it didn't work out. So that ended up not being like what happened. But my dad ended up moving to Hawaii, getting a job, and his story was what better way to like have a family than on a tropical island in paradise. And so he invited us over, and so we went over there. And
Your mum as well?
what was that?
And with your mum too?
Yeah.
Right.
So they
Wow.
wanted they wanted to do co-parenting, which was so interesting at the time. Like I moved a lot of houses because the coffee shop didn't always do really well. There was like good seasons, and my mom always emphasized us, being in a good place, and sometimes that was uh, unachievable as far as like keeping that, withstanding that. So I moved a lot. So when I moved to Hawaii, the idea sounded really great, but it was actually really hard because my comfort was the coffee shop and
Yeah.
Ojai um, and I loved horses and soccer, and going there, the island was just so different, which is crazy, right? You think like, oh my gosh, it's paradise. It was hard going to school, like being a new kid in school and not knowing anybody. Like we didn't go over with any other families. Um, and the crazy thing is that for a year I cried. Like I wanted to come back to California because it's just what I knew and it felt like home. And we ended up staying 4 years. I learned how to surf. I met my best friend of 20 years who now runs my social, who takes incredible photos. And I found God too over there. I started going to church. And those were like three huge components in my life that I thought it was the worst trip of my life. I thought my world was ending. I cried and then I got the most beautiful things from it. And so then we moved back to California. I wanted to go back to Hawaii.
Isn't that always the way, right? But
So it's
now
so
you spend your
weird.
time in both, right? So you're in California right now,
Yeah.
and you're going to Hawaii tomorrow. So
Yeah.
you're all right. That's
Yeah, and I think, that was something as you get older, and you learn is that through those hard experiences or being a kid and not understanding, situations that you can't control or that you don't think are good, they turn out to be really amazing and a part of who you are, whether it's friendships or passions or, like I would have never thought I would have been a pro surfer at 10 years old when I first moved there, and I thought my brother would have been, or as far as my best friend, I could never imagine now that her following her passion of photography, that actually the two things we chose to do work perfectly together. And that allows us to support each other. And so those are the real things that matter. And you get to learn that as you get older. And a part of that is just, yeah, pursuing athleticism and sport and um, just being outdoors and seeing what really resonates with you.
yeah. I guess some of the stories that seem to come out a lot in these episodes of people is how sport became a refuge for them in some way because you might be and these days if you want to be an elite sports person you've got to be doing that thing when you're 11 or 12 or whatever
Yeah.
and in a lot of instances but you've still got a whole lot of normal teenage stuff going on like your
Yeah.
parents this is happening and then you're moving house and you're still like just this human person
Yeah.
it does and then you diverge you become an elite sports person and or you almost become untouchable to the rest of the it almost seems like you've never had a problem in your life. Like but it's never ever like that. So, was surfing when you started that? Did it soon become like not a refuge, but you go, oh, I'm starting to get good at this. This is what I can base a lot of my identity around. This is something I can hold on to while everything else is changing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's a healthy outlet as far as, or a healthy refuge or a place to put time. Surfing was fun. I think as a kid in sport, it's something that makes you feel good because of your energy. And as far as like meeting new kids, and not saying that every kid is going to be nice, and especially in sport, there's a lot of competing and competitive mentality. I think what I learned is that competitive mentality pushed me to be better than I thought I was. So like my personality naturally like a bit complacent, like not controversial, not really like aggressive, but when I would see someone doing something really well, it was inspiration to me. And so I would go, "Oh, I want to do that." Like, I don't want to lose, or if that person can do it, then I can too. And then I would do better than I thought, and then I would feel good about myself. And I think that's the real beauty behind sports and athleticism is that healthy comparison. As a teenager, of course, like I would say I've gone through phases where I would see other people maybe do better than me, and I would feel at sometimes like down about myself, or am I good enough? I ultimately turned that into motivation to try harder. What things could I work on? Spend more time in the water, a place of no judgment. Like out surfing, it's like, it's stormy, it's glassy, the waves are good, the waves are bad. And I kind of like had that parallel of, that could be like myself too, a bad day and a good day. But I'm going to go out there and I'm going to conquer these conditions. Um, and I think that I would apply that back into my life. And, with parents that were separated from a young age and mom with, um, trying to provide and selling a coffee shop for hardly anything and packing up and moving to the North Shore and then following and pursuing um, surfing with not much of a financial, gosh, what would I say? Support, like every penny that we put in for me to surf meant everything. And so for me, competing and learning to surf, it was about, my mom too, and working towards a goal and a future. Um, and yeah, and so, I mean, that's a long winded answer, but I guess with all of that, it is truly a refuge and a safe place for sure.
What about the pressure that brought? Did it bring any? Because obviously you start competing when you're 14, and like so many people, there's like a certain level of sacrifice. Like I was reading an article yesterday about a young Australian kid who's about to crack Formula One, and his dad's spent over $6 million getting him to the point where he might get the job in Formula One. And then obviously if he does, he repays it back in 3 months, right? But parents and when you become a parent, you realize that you just do pretty much anything, like I'm ferrying my daughter from ballet class to singing class to rugby to surf lifesaving, and you're like, oh man, and you realize your parents did the same thing. They just sacrificed so much time and all their weekends and all their money to just because you decided that maybe you wanted to do this thing for a while. But when you started to go, I can compete here, I can do something with this. Do you feel the pressure of that sacrifice?
I would say in certain ways, but at the same time, I've always done better when I'm doing it for a good cause or what I feel is the right thing to do. And I think that's the different driving force that, yeah, there was pressure because we needed the money. But at the same time, I knew that if it didn't happen, I still had a wonderful, loving mother, and that no matter what, it would work out, in whatever way, because, you guys as parents, like, you try your best and you can only do what you know. And I think it's just this real beautiful thing. So for me, I always took it as like, no, I've been given this talent. Like I always felt like I have this little bit of talent, and if I, grasp it and I work hard and I do right by people and I put in the time and I get myself in motion, that truly whatever the outcome is, it will be good. And I had to trust in that. And I just always remembered that, even on like the worst days or losing or falling off tour. I just knew in my heart, if I just chase after these things, like whatever direction, it will be good. Just be in motion, get going. Like, don't sit around, don't feel sorry for yourself. Like, there's too much beauty out there. And it worked out. And I like every day I'm just like, wait, what? Like the last like 30 years, um, there's so much that, milestones that were reached. So yeah.
What was the lowest point? Because for me, and I don't know 100%, but it feels like if you're on the world tour, you're sitting pretty somewhat. If you're on the second tier tour, you're scraping around, just trying desperately to get onto the top tour again. So I know that you spent your time battling along, which I think that there's money in surfing, it seems like, but not deep money, right? So you got to be at the top. So were there times there where you're like, I'm just not going to get it? Like, I'm having dips in motivation. Maybe I'm not going to do it. It sounds like you've got a lot of really foundational like pillars that you draw on, right, to keep it going when things are not going that well. But there's got to have been times when you're just like, this is not. I'm never going to get there, or things are not going. And how did you immediately cope with them? And is there one low point that you can remember?
Yeah. Well, to start, surfing is expensive. It's an international sport. So you're traveling to all these different countries, plane tickets, changes in travel, contest days. Like, in surfing, right, we have a contest window. If it's 12 days and we only run for 4 out of those 12, that's a lot of space to fill with accommodation, all that stuff. So it's definitely really expensive. If you do not have a headline sponsor, a big sponsor that covers your travel costs, all those expenses come out of your pocket. So as far as like the low points that come to mind, I did ride Pho3nix for 10 years as a kid, and that was a real mainstream surf company. Supported me a lot. I pretty much grew up with them. But I was trying to qualify for the first time, and I don't know if they just had enough or it was 10 years and the 3 years that I just missed it by one spot wasn't enough, but they dropped me. And that was a really defining point in my life because the first year I did the qualifying series, I missed it by one spot. The second year, I missed it by two spots. And the third year, I won the whole dang thing. So they had dropped me in the year two. And I definitely had to question, like, can I sacrifice our own money to still believe in this dream? I didn't make it for 2 years. I saw friends like Coco Ho, who was on tour, who I sat next to in school qualifying, and my good friend Laura Enever from Australia, who's still a best friend, qualifying. And so I saw my peers, and I had to ask myself, like, yeah, can I do it? Like, is it worth it? Do I need to take this money and go to college? Do I need to pursue something that is surfacely telling me that I'll have stability? Um and I just like was no, there's that little spark that was like, I can do this. Like, just put more time in. I got one of my best friends now to video me so I can analyze the footage myself because I couldn't afford a coach, to see what I was doing wrong. I would ask good friends on tour, Jared House, who's from Australia, Tommy Whitaker, who kind of were like big brothers to me. And I would ask them for advice. And I went on that third year and I won the entire QS. And so there was this part of me that was so celebratory and like, I did it. And there was still that part that was like, but no one wants to sponsor me. Like, what, that part of like, wait a second. Besides two companies, Oakley and Freestyle, and they've sponsored me since I was 14, and they stuck by me from the beginning. So I just had enough to do that third year. But that was the part that I was like, wait, like, how come I don't have the headline sponsor? Like, and I was like, you know what? I don't need to live and abide by a company that I don't truly believe in their messaging or supporting me. Like, I want people to come behind me and support what my vision is, or, who I am as a person. And that was kind of that generation, I would say that was like 10 years ago, of no Instagram. You weren't your own brand. You were, the only advertising you get would be in a magazine if they ran an ad of you. And so there wasn't that place to say like, okay, I can make my own brand. And um so for 4 years I wasn't sponsored, but I maintained my competitive skill in that, and I became who I was and what I believed in, and I started sharing that through Instagram once that platform came up, and Facebook, and I started getting all these followers. Like, all these people wanted to relate with my life, and um without the publicity. That's was the crazy thing, is it brought these people in my life that were more or less meant to be. And I ended up getting 4 years later a crazy amazing sponsor with Ruka and Pat Tenari. He believed in me at the time, and I know it was about the low to answer this question, but it was a low that ultimately ended up, of course, being a high, and that was kind of the process of how it went a little bit. And so, like, 4 years as someone young feels like a long time, to be
Yeah.
persistent and keep going. But in that, there was tons of highs too.
Well, it probably, like, it sounds like, and this happens so often in so many different walks of life. It's like something goes wrong and it forces you to reevaluate what you want and then get really, really clear on what you want. And then once you're clear on what you want, the universe seems to provide it for you when it's ready to do so, right? So, and I always feel that, right? I always feel that. Like, if I'm torn between two things, like, I'll never get either of those things.
Right.
You got to go, okay, you got to sit down, and whatever happens, one road cuts off and you're like, what do I really want? And then you get clear on it, and then bang, straight away.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting how that thing happens, right? And then you get real serious about what you want, and then people start coming to you about it. And I just looked at your Instagram there. You got like 350,000 followers. You got like another 250,000 on Facebook. and I've like got 3,000. Come on. You know what? I'm going to put my Instagram handle at the bottom of the screen for this entire podcast.
Speak your truth, Will. Speak your truth.
Exactly, man. I said, you didn't even follow me yet. Yet. I said yet. So a couple other things I want to touch on, right? So obviously then, you know, you go on this big run and you've won the US Open twice, and that's a really, really big one in the world of surfing. You know, you're floating around in the top 10. You won it in 2017. And that wasn't the first win you've had, but it's a big one. So how did your life change then? Because, you know, you had a lot of top 5s and top 10s and stuff, and then to go home to US and win it and then back it up 2 years later. How did your life change externally, but how did your life change internally as well to know, like, you go, hey, I've made it. I'm here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like a catch-22. That winning the US Open for the first time in 2017, that was the pinnacle of my competitive career because I truly felt like it was a world championship tour event. You know, it to win, I had to beat Carissa Moore, who is now the 4-time world champion, Olympic gold medalist. I had to beat Tatiana, who was runner-up this year. Malia, Coco, like everybody, like all the top girls that I've always competed against, and I won. And so for me, I was like everything that I've put into saying that or even just my own self-doubts of like I'm not good enough. I don't have the natural talent. I don't have the support, the backing, the financial stability, the any of those like dark thoughts that, you know, I had to learn how to rewire and go, no, I am this and I can be who I want to be and I need to picture myself here and I need to put the time in. Winning the US Open was like, you did it. You know, you are good enough. You are. And so internally it just I think it truly gave me real confidence and, you know, in myself of like making the right decision. I don't know, like just so much to it. Hard work paid off, like, you know, like having an end result where it's like you've dedicated yourself and you worked hard, like it feels good. And anybody that says it doesn't is lying because winning is amazing. and and I think, you know, that feeling can become addictive, you know, too, as a competitor. I think that's probably why I set little self challenges every day because, you know, when you win at something as simple as, you know, marking off a commitment, like I said, my chores and checklists, I do that, I feel like I won. And so I think that feeling's very, you can translate that into a lot of areas. And then winning the US Open a second time was, you know, 2 years later was actually like, oh no, because it was almost a little bit unbelievable for me. I'm like, anybody can win a contest. It was a fluke, you know. I'm like, it's so ridiculous how it doesn't take that long for your mind to somehow like feed you these doubtful thoughts sometimes. And I think in life we're always gonna have that. It's just natural as a human. We're freaking technical and complex and just wild. And so I think, you know, we're always going to think, so if I'm going to focus on that, I'm going to reach for healthy things. And that part of winning the US Open once, thinking it was a fluke, anyone could win a serve contest. I just got lucky. I was in California, waves weren't good enough, blah blah blah, all that. Winning it the second time, I was like, okay, no, Sage, like you did it. Like God was like, please, can we just let this resonate that what you've done, you're worthy of it.
Yeah, you did it on your own merit. There was no reason outside of yourself other than that you were good enough.
Yeah. And it was literally that, no, it was like you, at the end of the day, I have to paddle out in that jersey and make the decisions. And I did it. And so that was really great. And then after that, I got tons of sponsors, which is fun. It was like Oakley booked me out like tons of rooms for my friends, and we had a celebration, and I had the pool cabana, which I've never had the pool cabana. And it was just, you know, I think one of the greatest things was when I came home, one of the local breweries here threw my US Open party, and I think I had over 250 people come. And to me, that was so surreal to see how many people truly believed in me, and actually stood by me and supported me. And so winning that was like winning that for everybody, in my community and friends and family. So yeah, there's truly a lot that I got internally and externally.
People are it doesn't matter where you are in your journey, you don't realize, like, people get so tied up in their self-doubt or give themselves a reason to deflect. Oh, okay, it was because of this or it was because of that. And then one day you realize how many people are there supporting you the entire time, and
Right.
you get blinded, or like
Yeah.
blinkers on, because you're not realizing the big picture, and you kind of find ways
Yeah.
to give yourself self-doubt.
And I was going to say a really cool part to the first US Open that I won, because I was on tour for how many years, I had just enough money to put a down payment on a total fixer-upper house. Like, it's a house I live in now, and I had just enough, and it was for my mom and I. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with my grandma, so my mom's room was in the living room, and we were by the beach, so that was cool, but it was also the fact that it was totally underspaced, and an older apartment. And so I found this place, and I would drive up to it every day for a month. And this is before that US Open. And I would just look at it, and I would hope that it would be mine. And I went out on a limb, and I was like, okay, God, like I'm putting, this is the most money I have. This is all my savings. I'm putting into the house for my mom and I. Like, it's our home. We don't have to leave. We don't have to move. We get to make it what we want to. And I got the keys for the house on Friday, and I won the US Open on Sunday, and they changed the prize purse to $80,000. And that was the first year that they changed the prize money to equal pay for women and men. And I mean, this might be too much information, but that was my house down payment. So it was like, it was just like one of those things that God was like, you do right, and you honor your parents, and you respect them, and you reach for good, and you won't even know, but you'll be repaid. And that was one of those instances that was just also internally, like, so trusting in that through everything, like, yeah, that there's goodness in your dedication and hard work. And yeah, it was crazy. So that's like just a side note story that's super personal, but I was like, I just had the unction to share, because I was like, it was, going out on a limb and trusting. Yeah.
See, it's funny. You call it, I mean, you like, as you said, I found God, I go to church, but I would call it like just the power of your own manifestation from
Totally.
the universe, right? Because,
Absolutely.
and it's funny because it reminds me of, like, I'm sitting here in this house that we've just bought, right? And I've never owned a house before, and now I own this house, right? And I also own a gigantic mortgage, but I own this house, and
right.
like, and
that
for
came with mine too. It's okay.
and that, like, here in Sydney, the house prices are ridiculously high, like unbelievably high. It's one of the most expensive cities in the world. So I'm like, we're never going to be able to do this. I just want to bring the kids up in a house that they can live in, right? We don't have to move out of because someone wants to rent it to someone else or whatever it is. And so you have a home, right? And you know exactly what that's like the power of a kid knowing that this is their house and we can change it. And it was never going to happen, right? I was like, we just don't have enough. And then, this house comes up, and I'm like, this is it. This is the one. And I spent like days and days going, and I focused in on, this is the amount of money it's going to cost, right? This is it. It's going to auction this house. And down to like 10,000, like down to the exact amount. I'm like, this is what it's going to be, because it's fair for them and it's fair for us.
Yeah.
And then they offered us for that exact price down to the dollar. And I was just like, we did this. I did this.
You did do it, right?
Yeah, and you did it.
And that's something too. It's like, getting older, like I said, finding God or my beliefs. It's like every religion is aspiring to connect to the same source, of like what life is about, and love and dedication and manifesting. And we're all in search of being in line and doing good and doing the best for our kids. And sorry, my dog is up here, everybody.
Your kids or your dog or...
Yeah. I was like, I've manifested my dog to come in.
You don't even own a dog. That's how powerful you are.
But yeah, so it's truly like exactly like we all connect in that way. And, when we put our minds to focusing on things that we, want or know to be good for our family or for others, it's like, the universe prevails and comes through. And it might be a timing thing, right? Like that's what I've trusted too. Like there's my own timing and agenda. And then there's also what's going to be right for your life. And it comes right when you need it, like whatever that is, So it's just trusting and moving forward. So yeah, that's so cool about your house too, because
Yeah.
like those are the little like, and I think even in sport, look for the messages or the signs. Like that's what makes life fun. Like, a stranger could say something and you'll remember it and you'll be like, oh my gosh, like how did I not think of that? Or someone will encourage you. Someone will, and it's just to have ears to tune to hear that, because your life wants good for you. It's like sport wants good for you, athleticism, health, like that all wants good. And the more you can surround yourself with those things and pursue it, the better your life will be. I truly believe.
I think you're 100% correct, and it kind of, let's bring this back around to Phoenix, right? And I tell you like another story.
Phoenix.
That's it.
I'm so excited.
I'll tell you a story of how this is how I ended up in Phoenix, dealing like or being involved in Phoenix Team. Is that for like I'm a journalist and a presenter and commentator by trade, right? And then at the start of coronavirus, I was like everything like I basically was like, I don't want to just be a lone soldier anymore and just freelance in and out. I want to do something that's good for people. I want to help make a difference in some way. I don't just want to be out for the dollar like I've been for the last 15 years or whatever. Yeah. And we're having lots of fun doing sports and stuff, but it was like sports very transient. And this, like you do a competition or I do television of it and then it's gone. Right? It goes to the history box, next one. Whereas like you're not building a house or you're not, creating something that's going to have lasting, tangible benefits. And at least that's what television is like where I've been. And I'm like, and I sat down with my wife, I remember the day, and I sat down on the couch, and I'm like, I just want to do something that means something to people and that has, where I have a team to rely on. And like we'd all work together to work towards something, to make something. And then 10 days later, Chris McCormack, who you would have spoken to already, who's four-time Ironman world champion and triathlon world champion, rang me up and was like, this is what we're going to do, this thing, and it's going to be called Pho3nix, and this is what we're doing, and we've got, I'm going to start with this Pho3nix team, and then before you know it, like we've got, kids triathlons and education programs, like 50,000 kids around the world, and we're doing this sub-7, sub-8 project, and we've got the Pho3nix team of elite athletes, which you're now a part of, and it's all about helping kids to participate in sport, and it's just like it just came out of the blue. It's a completely random thing 2 years ago to now, which has led me and you to this position where we've got a foundation that doesn't exist to sell anything, to make money, it's just purely to help inspire kids to play sport. So for you it means a lot to me, but for you to come and join this, I feel like it's really aligned with you and what's important to you. I mean, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, the Pho3nix Foundation is incredible. I mean, there's so much to it. I mean, what really got me and my attention is just the symbolism of even a phoenix bird, like what that represents to rise from the ashes, to rebirth, to restart, to regenerate. I feel like it's so applicable to not only my life, but to kids, to people. Like we're constantly having to change and move, and whether it's our circumstances or not. And I love activity. I love the memories of when I was a kid and running in the fields in Ojai and being outside and walking home from school and playing soccer, riding horses, surfing. Like I really can't even think of bad memories when it comes to moving my body and being outside and friendships and things. And so that's what I love so much about Pho3nix, is that it literally is asking for nothing and giving the world. And that is a idea, that is a motivation, that is encouragement, that's community, that's a team, and all of those things bring goodness, and I don't know. I freaking love the bird. I love a phoenix bird. It's like such a pillar. And
where's your gear? We've got to get you the gear. I mean, I've got the gear already. See, I've got the gear.
It's so cool. That's the bird. That's the magical, mystical.
That's it.
Bird. And I'm just honored. Like I'm truly honored to have been asked to be able to learn about Pho3nix before I even came on. Like, you guys have been, also great to just inform me on what the mission is and what the idea is, and truly ask if it's something that I believe in. And I think that's something I've wanted in my life so much, is to work with companies and spread messages that truly resonate with my heart, and that also will help people. And I know Pho3nix will. And so I'm just so excited to be a part of it and to get kids moving and be outside and breathing and yeah, just all good things.
Oh, we're extremely happy to have you, and it's nice to see, and we get a lot of feedback now. But when we started off, people were just like, but what? But why? But why are you doing it? But where's the? I mean, where's the profit and loss shit? We're like, no. The profit is this. This is the profit. Look at these. Look at these faces. Look at what we're doing. Like, look at the difference it's making. And I think that's
The
one of
world's
the.
not used to that, though. The world, for some reason, it's got a price tag on it. It has it can have an alternative motive or something. And I think the pureness of Pho3nix and what we want to encourage is so good and free, and every kid could have it, like, on their own. They're able and capable of choosing to get outside and move, and if not inside, then indoors, right? I'm like, we could do exercise videos, we could do Zoom camps, we could do like, it's just endless with yeah, what could happen.
It absolutely is. Now, you turned 31 in a couple of weeks. Not to reveal your age here, right? It's on Wikipedia, by the way. So it's already out there. So I'm not revealing anything. On the 28th of December. Yeah, sorry. So hey, man, I'll be 40 in 2 years. So don't worry. I have won precisely 0 US Open of surfings. No, none. And I have 0 prospects of ever doing it. So don't worry.
There's still time.
You haven't seen me actually on a board. It's not great. It's not awesome. It's not awesome.
But there's a lot of U.S. Opens. There's not just the U.S. Open of surfing, U.S. Open of tennis.
Also no chance of the tennis one. The golf one, I've got nothing.
Golf?
I possibly like beer pong or like darts. I think I'll probably do darts. Or I don't have any skill in darts, but like, it looks like something I could get into.
I feel like that's a highly competitive.
It is. I think it absolutely is. Yeah.
Choice, so it's gonna be hard.
Or something like really niche, like disc golf, or like something where there's only about 15 people play it.
We just went bowling the other night and had so much fun. So there's always the bowling league. Except I think Australians bowling's different than our bowling, right?
Is it? What, you mean 10-pin bowling?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, down the lane. Oh, is it?
Hold on. I got
righto.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. Yeah, last question. Last question. As you move through your career, I'm not saying you're at the back end, you're right in the middle, you're right in the sweet spot. What is your motive? How does your motivation change towards legacy? And like, obviously there's always another 17-year-old coming onto the world tour. There's always another generation. So like, what's your motivation look like in terms of legacy as you move forward through your career, and try and help the sport of surfing? Because obviously it's changed a lot in the last 15 years. It's got that counterculture versus mass commercialization, like, it's trying to come together, and it doesn't always get it 100% correct. And there's a lot of body image stuff going on with women in surfing and the way it's marketed, etc. So what kind of legacy do you want to leave on the sport as you continue through your journey?
Yeah. Being 31, it's true, Will. I'm 31.
Not yet.
December 28th. Depending on when this wonderful podcast comes out.
Yeah, you might be by then. Yeah.
I think I will be 31.
Possibly.
Depending. But you know what? It's like, I'm in those years of transition, possibly. I've been on the world tour for 8 years. I've been competing. I've hit just some really big accomplishments as far as results. And, there truly is that side of me that I'm still young. I still want to compete, and I still want to be athletic and in shape, and push myself. I don't want to transition ever out of that. I don't think I want to keep my mind sharp. but I also there's a part of my heart that wants to give back and that wants to connect. And so we've been talking about some surf camps possibly, and some learning and some on the side of nutrition and fitness and friendships. I was just talking to a farm here local in Ventura about organic agriculture, about taking farm courses and understanding nutrients in the soil, and kind of that side, which I think really excites me because it comes back to being healthy. And they are facilitating field trips for kids to come and put their hands and their feet in the soil, learn about the nutrition that grows. And so I think there's that side of me that hasn't been touched about, um, yeah, just giving back to my community. I've been competing. It's been about me. I've been on the podium, and I think it's time to involve those close to me around where I live and in the nations, and hopefully spark ideas around that. And yeah, I don't know what else. I'm not sure yet, but those are the three things that are still really dear to my heart. And in times of maybe travel not being that easy, I think it's all pointing to what's right in front of me. And I think for everybody it's the same, like what's around you, who's around you, what can you do, where can you give back, like um and just making things possible and happen. And yeah, so who knows, I might be a farmer next year, we're not sure.
Can't picture that. Can't picture it.
Just kidding. Still a pro surfer, still gonna be one. I can't wait though to possibly have some surf camps for some, little girls is where my heart's kind of at, with wanting to encourage them and, yeah, just give insight in what I can to help them fulfill their dreams, and hopefully give them a little bit of hope that makes the hard days easier, and that anything's possible. And I'm so excited to do that with Pho3nix, everybody.
Yeah, that's it. Well, our motto is together we rise, so we're going to be together.
Yay.
You and I and the rest of Pho3nix and those who have joined the movement already are going to be, getting to watch on, to participate as we continue to grow. And we're so happy to have you as part of the Pho3nix team. And thank you for joining the Pho3nix Rising podcast, Sage Erickson.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks, Will. So much fun. Can't wait for the future.